Ethan stood on a makeshift platform, his crutches steadying him against the uneven wooden planks. The platform was hastily constructed, much like the resolve that had brought him here. He had spent countless nights dreaming of this moment, where he would stand before his people, not as a broken man, but as a beacon of hope and resilience. He looked out at the faces before him. Hope filled their eyes, mingled with curiosity and a hint of skepticism. These were the people he had grown up with, the ones who had seen him at his lowest, and now, they were here to witness his rise. The air was thick with anticipation, every breath a silent prayer for change. He remembered a time when his own eyes held fear, a time when every step was a struggle, and every day was a battle against despair. He had been lost, wandering through a fog of self-doubt and pain, unsure if he would ever find his way out, a time before he found his strength, before he realized that true power came not from physical prowess, but from the indomitable spirit within. It was a lesson hard learned, through trials and tribulations, that had tested the very core of his being. "Ethan, they called me broken," he began, his voice rough but steady. The words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the labels that had been thrust upon him. He paused, letting the weight of his statement sink in. The crowd was silent, their attention unwavering. They said I was useless. The murmurs of disapproval had once been a constant backdrop to his life, a chorus of doubt that had threatened to drown out his own voice. But he had learned to rise above it, to find strength in the very words that were meant to break him. That I was a burden. The dismissive glances, the turned backs, they had all been part of his journey. Each rejection had been a stepping stone, each slight a lesson in resilience. He had learned to carry the weight of their scorn, to transform it into fuel for his inner fire. A flicker of pain crossed his features, then vanished. It was a fleeting reminder of the scars that had shaped him, both visible and invisible. But he had come to understand that pain was not his enemy, it was his teacher, guiding him towards a strength he never knew he possessed. He leaned forward, gripping his crutches. They were more than just supports, they were symbols of his journey, each worn spot a testament to the miles he had traveled and the obstacles he had overcome. They were extensions of his will, forged in the crucible of his struggle. They were worn smooth with use, not from weakness, but from power. Each step he took with them was a declaration of his resilience, a statement that he would not be defined by his limitations, but by his ability to rise above them. Not from weakness, but from power. His gaze was steady, his resolve unshakable. He had come to understand that true strength was not the absence of struggle, but the ability to persevere in the face of it. And he was determined to share this lesson with his people. "Ethan, I will teach you what I have learned." His voice carried the weight of his journey, the lessons etched into every word. He wanted them to see that they too could rise above their circumstances, that they too could find strength in their struggles. We are not defined by our limitations, but by how we overcome them. The crowd listened intently, their eyes reflecting a newfound understanding. They saw in Ethan a reflection of their own potential, a beacon of hope that shone through the darkness of their doubts. Ethan's gaze swept over the crowd, igniting a spark of defiance in each heart. He would show them. They were not broken. They were unbroken. And in that moment, a new chapter began for them all, one defined not by their past, but by the limitless possibilities of their future. Ethan's village was nestled in a valley. It was a place of simple beauty. But a shadow had fallen upon it. Mercenaries, led by the iron-fisted commander Drago, had seized control. Drago and his men demanded heavy taxes. They terrorized the villagers. Fear became a constant companion. The village elders preached patience, but Ethan saw the despair in their eyes. Ethan longed to fight back, to protect his people. But he was different. He had always walked with crutches. He was seen as weak, incapable of defending himself, let alone others. Ethan was mocked for his disability. Children pointed and whispered. Adults pitied him. Their words stung more than any blow. He was Ethan, not broken. He retreated into the forest. There, hidden amongst the trees, he began to train. He practiced with his crutches, he swung, he blocked, he struck. He turned his perceived weakness into a strength. He honed his body and mind. He studied the movements of animals, the flow of water, the strength of the trees. He learned to adapt, to anticipate, to overcome. One night, the silence was shattered. The mercenaries stormed into the village. Screams pierced the darkness. Drago, his face twisted in a cruel sneer, led the charge. They were ransacking homes, terrorizing villagers. Ethan's blood ran cold. Fear threatened to consume him, but then he saw Drago strike an elder. Rage surged through him. He wouldn't hide. Not anymore. Ethan charged into the chaos. His crutches became weapons. He moved with a speed and agility that belied his supposed weakness. He fought with the fury of a cornered animal. The villagers watched in astonishment as Ethan fought. He moved like a whirlwind. His crutches were an extension of himself. He disarmed one mercenary, then another. He fought with a ferocity born of desperation and courage. Drago watched, amusement flickering in his eyes. He underestimated Ethan. He saw him as a cripple, not a warrior. Big mistake. Ethan spun, his crutch connecting with Drago's jaw. The commander reeled, shock replacing his amusement. Ethan pressed his advantage, driving Drago back with a flurry of blows. Drago stumbled, his arrogance shattered. He never expected such resistance, least of all from the boy he called broken. He looked around at his men, some lying injured, others hesitant. With a roar of frustration, Drago retreated, his men scrambling after him. The villagers, inspired by Ethan, had taken up whatever weapons they could find. The villagers erupted in cheers, their fear replaced by hope. Ethan stood tall, his chest heaving. He was not broken, he was unbroken. The echoes of Drago's fall resonated through the village. It was a victory, hard-won and precious. But Ethan knew it was not the end, it was just the beginning. He realized that true strength lay not in physical prowess, but in the courage to face one's fears. This revelation came to him one quiet morning as he stood on the hill overlooking the village. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue over the landscape. It was a moment of clarity, a new dawn, not just for the day, but for his life. He remembered the times he had been paralyzed by fear, unable to act, unable to move forward. But now, he understood that fear was not something to be ashamed of. It was a natural part of life, something that everyone experienced. What mattered was how one responded to it. He decided then and there that he would no longer be a prisoner of his own fears. With this newfound courage, he returned to the village. The sight that greeted him was one of determination and hope. The villagers, who had once been downtrodden and fearful, were now working together to rebuild their homes and their lives. The elders, their eyes shining with newfound respect, approached Ethan. They asked him to teach them, to show them how to defend themselves. Ethan agreed, his heart filled with purpose. He began to train the villagers, teaching them not just the physical skills they needed to defend themselves, but also the mental and emotional strength required to face their fears. The training sessions became a symbol of their collective resilience and determination. They were no longer victims, they were warriors, ready to protect their home and their loved ones. The village awoke to a new dawn. The fear that had gripped them for so long began to recede. They had faced their oppressors and emerged victorious. Ethan, the boy they had once pitied, had shown them the true meaning of strength. It was not just about physical power, but about the courage to stand up for what was right, to protect those who could not protect themselves. Ethan became a symbol of hope, not just for the villagers, but for himself. He had discovered his true strength, and in doing so, had inspired others to find theirs. The village was no longer just a place, it was a community bound together by shared experiences and mutual respect. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, Ethan knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united and unafraid. Ethan stood before the villagers, no longer the boy they had called broken, but a leader, a teacher, a warrior. He showed them how to use their everyday tools as weapons. He taught them to adapt, to be resourceful, to be strong.
He emphasized the importance of unity, of looking out for one another. He instilled in them the belief that they were not victims, but survivors. They were the unbroken.
The village transformed. No longer cowering in fear, they stood tall, ready to face any threat. They were a community reborn, forged in the fires of adversity, their spirits unbroken. Ethan's story spread to other villages. It was told in hushed tones around campfires, shared in the bustling town squares, and whispered among the elders. The tale of a young boy who defied the odds and stood up against the tyranny of Drago resonated deeply with everyone who heard it. His courage and determination became a beacon of hope for those who had long suffered in silence. They, too, had suffered under Drago's tyranny. Their homes had been destroyed, their families torn apart and their spirits crushed. But as they listened to Ethan's story, something began to change. They saw in him a reflection of their own struggles, and a reminder that they too had the power to fight back. Inspired by Ethan's example, they rose up, driving out their oppressors. They banded together, drawing strength from one another, and fought with a newfound determination. The spirit of resistance spread like wildfire, igniting a revolution that would change their world forever. The legacy of the Unbroken lived on. It was a symbol of their unity and resilience, a reminder that no matter how dire the circumstances, they could never be truly defeated. The celebrations of their newfound freedom were filled with joy and relief, but also with a solemn vow to never let tyranny take root again. Ethan knew that the fight for freedom was never truly over. He stood at the edge of the horizon, contemplating the future. The battles they had won were just the beginning. There would always be new challenges, new threats to their hard-won liberty, but he was ready to face them, knowing that the spirit of the Unbroken would guide him. But he also knew that as long as there were those who refused to be broken, there was always hope. The community had come together in ways they never thought possible, supporting each other through the darkest times. Their unity was their strength and their hope was their shield. He had found his strength, not in spite of his disability, but because of it. His crutches were not a symbol of weakness, but of his unyielding spirit. They had become his weapons, his tools of defiance. And in his journey, he had shown others that true strength comes from within, from the will to keep fighting no matter the odds. And so, the legend of Ethan, the boy who turned his crutches into weapons and his spirit into steel, was passed down through generations. His story became a part of their heritage, a tale told to inspire and to remind them of the power of resilience. It was a story of transformation, of turning adversity into strength, and of the unbreakable spirit that lies within us all. A testament to the indomitable spirit that resides in us all. Ethan's legacy was not just his own. It belonged to everyone who had ever faced hardship and refused to give in. It was a call to action, a reminder that we all have the power to change our destiny, to rise above our circumstances, and to stand together in the face of adversity. Please subscribe to my account, like and share this video.